Well, many people think that the Palestinians are all but forgotten, but I can assure you that in Norway there has been a strong and long-standing solidarity movement for the Palestinians, and I'm part of that. And also within the medical sector, with doctors and nurses, there has been a very strong sentiment and praxis of solidarity with the Palestinians. So I am but one of many. Well, I've been working with the Palestinians since 1981. I was in Beirut in 1981 and 82. I met Obamas, I met Abu Shahad. I come to learn about the just cause of the Palestinian people. And then later on I started to work in the West Bank and in Gaza, and for the last 17 years I have been having projects and training and in and out in Gaza every year. And I've been here during the last 4 wars actually, working in Shifa. So it's part of my professional life. Let me first comment on your description of me as some sort of kamikaze doctor. I don't think this is a kamikaze action to come to Gaza. I was actually sent by my hospital because the Minister of Health in Gaza requested me to come, and my hospital director said, you can go and we will cover your pay and your travel. So I am here. I mean, I can go home whenever I want with my red passport. The Palestinians are living here, so why shouldn't I be able to live here? Okay, so Shifa Hospital, I think, is one of the most impressive hospitals in the world when it comes to handling what we call mass casualty crisis, these medical disasters where so many people come in at the same time to a medical facility that has to sort them, to do resuscitation, to try to find out who needs surgery, to take the dead kindly apart from the living ones, and then to do surgery and intensive care at a very high professional level. Shifa Hospital, my friends, is one of the most experienced hospitals in the world, unfortunately, because of the long-standing Israeli aggression and the attacks on Gaza. So in here, 220 surgeons are working, hundreds of doctors, hundreds of nurses and hospital employees. This hospital, I think, is an icon for the third world, for those people who are oppressed and occupied, because these doctors and nurses, they really show a very high morality. They have a very high standard, and they never yield and betray their people. Even as we are filled up with all sorts of horrendous injuries, so many children, 1/4 to 1/3 of the injured are children, and half every second coming in here is a child or a woman. Even with all this emotional stress, they keep working, they keep steadfast working with their patients. And as you see behind me now, there are new casualties from the merciless Israeli attack and murder of the Palestinian people in Gaza. When shall this stop? When shall this stop, Mr. Obama, Mr. Netanyahu? You are responsible for this massive killing of innocent Palestinians. You have so much blood on your hands now that it will be hard to clean them. I meant by that any person, president or carpenter, taxi driver or prime minister, who has a heart, who harbor human feelings, and who has the quality of empathy that can identify with others, would understand by walking through the wards in Shifa and being in the OR or in the emergency room in Shifa, that there is no way that these innocent Palestinian women, children, elders, men deserve this treatment that they are getting from the Israeli war machine. By seeing the suffering of the children, by seeing the wounds of the women, by seeing the amputations, the shrapnel wounds, the open abdomens, the half cut away faces, and by seeing that all of this is actually 100% preventable. All of these injuries, all of this suffering is man-made by the hand of the Israeli government and so strongly supported by Mr. Obama. That's why I invited him, because I don't think he realized what are the consequences on the ground at a human level of his politics that so strongly support the Israeli military machine. The leaders need to see what human suffering is. The Palestinians are the same humans as the Americans, as the Israelis. They have the same human value. They have the same blood. They have the same heart and the same longing for peace and for a good life without being bombed again and again. And I hoped that if President Obama could spend a night with us in Shifa, I'm sure he would understand that this is not the way to find a solution. It's hard to compare, but from the 2006 attack, we saw for the first time these strange amputations and people being cut in two by some sort of weapon that did not produce shrapnels, that was not in a metal casting. And more people than me have said that these injuries may be caused by a new type of weapons called dense inert metal explosives. No, this has never been proved to be the fact, and I think it is difficult to speculate in these different types of weapons. However, it is important for me to stress that whether a child is killed by a drone rocket or an F-16 rocket or an artillery shell from a Merkava tank or from an M16 assault rifle in the hands of an Israeli soldier, it doesn't really matter what type of weapon kills that child. The problem and the challenge and the moral discussion must be about the use of this military force against a civilian population. What we have seen this last war is, however, a very much more brutal attack on individual families. That the Israeli army has killed whole families in their apartment buildings, in their residential areas, as if they have the right to issue blanco capital punishment, death sentences to children, to women, to grandfathers and grandmothers of politicians that they disagree with. This is a new way of killing. This is a new and brutal way of executing people without law and order that you don't like. This war has nothing to do with a war against a military enemy. This is actually a war against the civilian Palestinian population, which is reflected in the numbers. You can argue as much as you like, but the Israelis, they maintain that 90% of their bombs hit the intended target. And when you have 4,000 injured and you have more than 1,400 injured children, of course, if you do the mathematics, this is not by chance. So I think I would sum up by saying that this attack has been more violent, more vicious, and more merciless, and also much more aggressive against the health institution by bombing Al-Wafa Hospital, by bombing Al-Aqsa Hospital, and by bombing ambulances and other health institutions, without any laudable, I cannot hear any strong protests from the big powers in the world, from the EU, from US, from UN, and from the other who are thought to be upholding international law and humanitarian law. Israel's impunity is what we see behind me. They can do what they want. They can kill as many Palestinians as they like without really any of the big powers making any steps to control this Israeli bloodthirsty, murderous military action on the Palestinian people. I entered Gaza through one of the 2 points. You know, many people think that Gaza is sort of porous. You can go in and out here and there. But let me make a point first that when they are bombing Gaza, it's 1.7 million people who have nowhere to fly. There is no escape out of Gaza. You're stuck inside Gaza. If you want to take your children and fly to another part of the world to be safe, you can't do it, because the occupant who is bombing you is at the same time upholding a siege for 7 years against the same people. So you can't fly. Only 2 ways in. It's Rafah in the south and Erez in the north, controlled by Egypt and by Israel. I traveled to Cairo. I tried to get in through Rafah. Unfortunately, I did not succeed. So I traveled to Amman and I got in through Erez, and that was an uncomplicated and nice entry. I wished that I would like to appeal to President Sisi and the new Egyptian government to open Rafah, because there is an urgent need. There is an urgent need for supplies to the hospitals, for medical teams to treat the wounded, the specialist teams to treat the wounded, and there is an urgent need for the Palestinian people to have a breath of freedom, to be able to travel and to be able to see their families, in particular in these hard times when so many lose their beloved ones. They need to be able to stay together. So please, President Sisi, open Rafah.